Hello students and friends. Welcome to Homeopathy Medicines. Today in this homeopathic materia medica lesson, I will discuss about homeopathic medicine Kali IODATUM. Before start this video, please subscribe to this channel for learn homeopathy online free and homeopathy materia medica. We need support from you to make this channel more beautiful. Now going to discuss about Kali IODATUM, its uses and symptoms. The profuse, watery, acrid coryza that the drug produces serves as a sure guiding symptom, especially when associated with pain in frontal sinus. It acts prominently on fibrous and connective tissues, producing infiltration, edema, etc. glandular swellings, purpura and hemorrhagic diathesis. Syphilis may be indicated in all stages. 1. In acute form with evening remitting fever, going off in nightly perspiration. 2. Second stage, mucous membranes and skin ulcerations. 3. Tertiary symptoms, nodes. Give material doses. Diffused sensitiveness, glands, scalp, etc. Rheumatism in neck, back, feet, especially heels and soles. Worse, cold and wet. Iodide of potassium in material doses acts in the different forms of fungoid disease, thrush, ringworm, etc., often simulating syphilis and bacterial diseases like tuberculosis. Symptoms like loss of weight, spitting of blood, etc. Taste is cough due to inhaling the fungus. Also brings about often favorable reaction in many chronic ailments even when not clearly symptomatically indicated. Mind, sad, anxious, harsh temper. Irritable, congestion to head, heat and throbbing. Head, pain through sides of head. Violent headache. Cranium swells up in hard lump. Pain intense over eyes and root of nose. Brain feels enlarged. Hard nodes, with severe pain. Facial neuralgia. Lancinating pain in upper jaw. Nose, red, swollen. Tip of nose red, profuse, acrid, hot, watery, thin discharge. Ozaina, with perforated septum. Sneezing. Nasal catarrh, involving frontal sinus. Stuffiness and dryness of nose, without discharge. Profuse, cool, greenish, unirritating discharges. Eyes, conjunctive red, injected, profuse lacrimation. Syphilitic iritis. Pustular keratitis and chemosis. Bony tumors of the orbit. Ear, noises in ear. Boring pain in ears. Stomach, saliva increased. Faintness at epigastrium. Cold food and drink, especially milk, aggravate. Much thirst. Throbbing, painful burning. Flatulence. Female, menses late, profuse. During menses uterus feels as if squeezed. Corrosive leukorrhea, with subacute inflammatory conditions of the womb in young married women. Fibroid tumors, metritis, subinvolution, hypertrophy, 1x or 1 grain crude, 3 times a day. Respiratory, violent cough, worse in morning. Pulmonary edema. Larynx feels raw. Laryngeal edema. Awakes choking. Expectoration like soap suds, greenish. Pneumonia, when hepatization commences. Pneumococcic meningitis. Stitching pains through lungs to back. Asthma. Dyspnea on ascending, with pain in heart. Dihydrorax, merc sulf. Pleuritic effusion. Cold travels downward to chest. Extremities, severe bone pains. Periosteum thickened, especially tibia, sensitive to touch, Kali B, asf. Rheumatism, pains at night and in damp weather. Contraction of joints. Rheumatism of knees with effusion. Pain in small of back and coccyx. Pain in hip, forcing limping. Sciatica, cannot stay in bed, worse at night and lying on affected side. Formication of lower extremities when sitting, better lying down. Skin, purple spots, worse on legs. Acne, hydroa. Small boils. Glands enlarged, indurated. Hives. Rough nodules all over, worse any covering, heat of body intense. Fissuredness of infants. Tendency to edematous swellings, eyelids, mouth, uvula, etc. Acne rosacea. Modalities, worse, warm clothing, warm room, at night, damp weather. Better, motion, open air. This remedy is an antipsoric and antisyphilitic. It has been used very extensively by the old school as an antisyphilitic, but in the very large doses which they used it became to a great extent allopathic to the disease, because of the tremendous effect it produced upon the economy, and implanted its own miasm, and thereby in a measure it suppressed many cases of syphilis. The medicines that are the most powerful substances are really those that sustain a homeopathic relation to the disease in general, and of these the very smallest dose will cure when similar. When the remedy is not similar enough to cure in such a form, the increasing of the dose does not make it homeopathic. There is an idea in vogue that increasing the dose makes the remedy similar. That is going away from principle. If the remedy is not similar, there is no form of dose that can make it similar. It affects the glandular structures and the periosteum after the manner of syphilis. It produces catarrhal inflammations. It is a deep-acting medicine and closely related to mercurius. It has ulcerations and catarrhal states and glandular affections like mercurius. It is similar in its action to mercurius and is an antidote to it. The old subjects who have always been taking calomel or blue mass for their bilious complaints will in time become subject to frequent choresis, constipation, pains and aches, and disturbance of the liver, and disordered stomach, and must have another dose of mercury. Some of these cases need this remedy. If you practice medicine in a neighborhood where there is a very poor homeopath, you will find that he is giving the biniodide, or some other preparation of mercury, for almost all of the colds or sore throats. This establishes upon all of these patients an over-susceptibility to the weather changes, and they keep taking these red mercurial powders. Some of them carry them around in their pockets. But the more they take of these red powders, the more frequently they have sore throats and colds. Many times they will not get over these troubles without Kali iode, in potentized form, or HEPA. HEPA and Kali iode are the two principal medicines that such patients need. Individuals with this susceptibility to colds and sore throats and weather changes, that is, from the effects of mercury, who have been led into a mercurial state, run two ways. Those who are invariably shivering and cold, and want to hover around the fire, and cannot keep warm, will need HEPA, and those that are always too warm, that want the covers off, and want to be in constant motion, extreme restlessness, very tired when keeping still, will have their mercury antidoted by Kali iode. The mercurial state will be antidoted, but it sometimes takes several prescriptions and sometimes a series of carefully selected remedies. The sura, that is, his chronic state, will not manifest itself until you have lifted off this miasmatic state, which has been caused by mercurius. It is astonishing what a great number of men, women and children are bowed down by the miasm that mercury produces, and yet those prescribers go on giving this form of mercury and say it is practicing homeopathy. I am led to remark that there is yet much to be learned about the art of prescribing. This remedy has a peculiar mental state. There is a very strong degree of irritability, cruelty, and harshness of temper. He is harsh with his family and with his children, abusive. It will take all the sense of refinement out of his mind, and then he will become sad and tearful, extremely nervous, and must walk and be on the go. If he remains in a warm room, he becomes weak and tired, and feels as if he could not stir, does not want to move, and does not know what is the matter with him. He is worse in the warmth of the house, but as soon as he goes into the open air he feels better, and as soon as he begins to walk he feels still better and can walk long distances without fatigue, goes into the house again and becomes weak and tired and exhausted. A nervous and mental exhaustion comes on from resting. The head manifests some peculiar things, such as we sometimes see in syphilis, which the remedy controls when the other symptoms agree. Biparietal head pains of nerve syphilis, old, long-standing cases. Pains through the parietal bones, through the side of the head, as if crushed in a vice. Awful crushing, pulsating, pressing, rending pains on both sides of the head. These are worse in the house, and better from warmth and from motion, better walking in the open air. All through the head there are pains like knife stabs, like nails driven in, lancinating pains, cutting pains in the scalp, in the temples, over the eyes, through the eyes. The pericranium becomes sensitive and filled with nodules. The scalp breaks out with nodular eruptions, tuberculous eruptions, syphilitic eruptions. Scalp painful on scratching as if ulcerated. Great disposition for hair to change color and fall out. Coldness of the painful parts. In watching a syphilitic case, there is often noticed disturbance of vision, and finally iritis. They can be treated homeopathically. I have seen syphilitic iritis of the most severe character cured with stephysocrea, HEPA, nitric acid, mercurius, Kali iode, and many other remedies. The inflammatory process stops at once. There are no adhesions, no deformity, and no troubles remaining behind. If you consider that a case of inflammation must run its course, and will be associated with fibrinous exudations, and adhesions most probably follow, Of course you must adopt the plan of dilating with atrophic, and hold the iris so until the disease has run its course. But the disease does not run its course after a proper remedy, and as that is the last symptom to appear, it will be the first to go, and you may expect the eye symptoms to disappear within 24 hours after the administration of the homeopathic remedy. This remedy has marked conjunctival trouble, with green catarrhal discharges from the eyes. This green character applies whenever you can find discharges. There is copious, thick, green expectoration, green discharges of mucus from the nose, from the eyes, from the ear, thick, greenish leucorrhea, green discharge from ulcers. These thick green or yellowish green discharges are sometimes very fetid. At times when you examine the conjunctiva it seems to puff out as though water were behind it, a chemosis. Iodide of potash produces that state. Chemosis, purulent secretion. In olden times when I used to give iodide of potash to rheumatic patients, according to the prevailing craze, I would notice, after a day or two, chemosis coming into the eyes and the patient beginning to ache in his bones all over, while the rheumatism of the joints would disappear. An allopathic effect was taking root upon that patient which would last for years. I have noticed that a large dose of Kali iode in syphilitics would make the patient get up the next morning with difficulty in opening the lids, and upon opening the eyes the conjunctiva would form water bags, as though water were behind them and they were bagged out. Kali iode also produces edema of the lids and injection and tumefaction of the conjunctiva. The mucous membrane becomes red, raw and bleeding. The vessels are enlarged and the surface is very sore, inflamed and smarting. He is compelled to hold the eyelids during winking. The winking is painful and causes scratching, as from sand. Acute conjunctivitis, especially when it occurs in patients who have rheumatism, who have been abused with mercury, or those afflicted with syphilis. Syphilitic and rheumatic affections of the eye. Old gouty subjects who must keep in motion, and must keep in the open air, who are always too warm, and cannot endure any degree of warmth in the room, who suffer more from their gouty pains when keeping quiet, those who are fatigued when keeping quiet and can walk and move without fatigue in the open air, especially when it is cold, with enlarged joints, with restlessness, anxiety, nervousness, harshness of the temper and great irritability, alternating with weeping. This relief from motion will make the routinist give use in many instances, but use would have no relation to the case whatever. Remember, use is a cold patient, who is always shivering and wants to be by the fire, whose complaints are more than by the heat. He is greater than in a warm room and becomes fatigued from motion, whereas Kali iode does not become fatigued from continued motion. The nose comes in for much trouble. In old syphilitic catarrhs they blow out great crusts and pieces of bone. Syphiliticos are inner, the bones of the nose are very sensitive to touch and become necrosed, and the nose flattens down and becomes soft. It is deprived of the bony framework that holds it in shape and settles down flat, leaving only the red tip. Extreme pain at the root of the nose like hyper. Thick, yellowish-green, copious discharge from the nose. Every change of the weather brings on catarrhal states. He is constantly taking cold, sneezing continuously. Copious, watery discharge from the nose, excoriating the passage, and causing burning in the nose. This coryza is less than in the open air, but all the rest of the patient is greater than in the open air. Consequently, when a patient has two such conditions that operate against each other he suffers much, because he cannot find causes for relief. In a warm room his nasal catarrh, or his coryza, is greater than, but in the open air he feels greater than as to the rest of his complaints. Repeated attacks of violent, acrid coryza from the least cold. With the coryza the frontal sinuses become involved, and there is great pain through the forehead, pain in the eyes, pains through the cheekbones. In the throat, as you might suppose from its relations to syphilis and mercury, there is much trouble. Deep ulcers in the throat, old syphilitic ulcers, perforating ulcers, eating away and destroying all the soft tissues, the uvula and the soft palate. Ulceration upon the tonsils, enlarged tonsils, very painful sore throat. Knots and knobs in the throat upon the mucous membranes. Dryness of throat and enlarged tonsils. Terrible pain at the root of the tongue at night. The whole pharynx, larynx, trachea and bronchial tubes suffer from catarrhal conditions. Inflammatory conditions with greenish discharge. While all the external symptoms and the rest of the body symptoms are relieved in the cold air and by the contact of external cold, internally cold things aggravate. Cold milk, ice cream, ice water, cold drinks and cold food, cold things in the stomach less than all the symptoms. though he has an excessive thirst and will drink large quantities of water. If very cold, it will make him sick. Kali iode has all the flatulence and belching of carboveg and lycopodium. The glands all over the body become tumid, enlarged and hard. It has cured enlargement of the thyroid gland. It may take this from iodine. Very characteristic is the chronic inflammation of the urethra, following gonorrhea, where the discharge is thick and green, or greenish-yellow, without pain. Inflammation of the testicles, syphilitic in character. Pain and rawness in the larynx, with hoarseness, awakens from constriction of the larynx. It is very useful in phthisis of the larynx. Cough from constant irritation in the larynx. Dry, hacking cough, hoarse cough with copious greenish expectoration. Catarrhal phthisis with thick, copious, greenish expectoration. Pleuritic effusion. Fluttering of the heart. Palpitation on slight exertion or when walking. Rapid pulse. Not only in old gouty troubles, but in patients threatening phthisis, and in old malarial troubles, this medicine will be of great service. It cures sciatica when the pain is sharp from the hip down, worse lying, sitting or standing, and better walking. You may go to the bedside of a patient who is suffering from what she calls hives. You will find she is covered from head to foot with an eruption that forms great nodules. She is fairly burning up from head to foot. She cannot endure any covering. The heat of her body is intense, yet she has no rise of temperature. Rough nodular manifestations all over the skin, a condition that will go away in a few hours, but in a few days, weeks or months come back again. A single dose of a very high potency of Kali iode will turn things into order in persons subject to these hives, and they will not come again. Thanks for watching this video. If you want more videos like Kali IODATUM, please subscribe this channel and press the bell icon. To learn homeopathy course online free with Homeopathy Materia Medica. Comment us your feedback and what you want in next video. Like and share this video with your friends and family. Thank you. Have a nice day. Stay healthy, stay happy.